Welcome to another video from Local Codes. In this video, we're going to be implementing the JWT authentication filter. So this is a series. So this is a continuation from the last video. So in this video, we're going to be talking on how to implement JWT authentication filter. So this JWT authentication filter, the purpose of this class is to handle the user authentication based on the JWT token by checking and validating that token. So in this class, we're going to be extending the once per request filter. So going forward, you'll see what the once per request filter does. So before we go on, I want you to understand what the non-null and at lazy annotation is. So when you annotate a parameter or a field with non-null, non-null is actually a Lombok annotation. So it generates code to check for null at runtime, helping to prevent non-null and to prevent null pointer exceptions. So that's what the non-null does. And then the at lazy, what it does is that it indicates that the bin should be lazily initiated. What it means is that when you start your application, the whole bin starts at the same time. So there might be a parameter that you don't want it to load immediately the application starts. So you use the at lazy, so it will lazily initiate. That's what it means. So the bin will be created and initialized only when it is first requested, rather than during the application startup. So this is a Spring Framework annotation. So going forward, JWT authentication. So this is a class that extends the one per request filter. So by doing so, we need to override the do filter internal. So this is a method under the once per request filter that we're going to be using for this class. So it takes in three parameters: the servlet, the HTTP servlet request, the HTTP servlet response, and the filter chain. The once per request filter typically involves checking and validating the token, based on within the authentication mechanism to ensure it is used only once for a specific request. So it's important that you know that JWT are commonly stored in the HTTP header of a request. So if you understand this, you'll be able to understand the first part of the steps that we're going to take while creating this this JWT authentication filter. So JWT are stored in HTTP headers of a request. So every time that the client, that's the web browser, communicates with the server, so there are those requests that goes to the server are what we call the HTTP header requests. So part of this request, so the request now is broken down into different components. So one part of the component is what they call the authorization header. So it is in this authorization header that the JWT is stored. So you will see it like a typical authorization header is just like this. So the authorization header is this, and then it contains the bearer and token. This is the token, the JWT token. So you see here that the token is represented by this, and then the bearer keyword indicates that the token is being sent as a bearer token. So the bearer token indicates that it's being sent as a bearer token for authentication. Then an HTTP request header consists of additional information about the request being sent from the client to the header to the server. So as I said before, the HTTP request header contains other components, but we will be needing just this authorization header for this class. So it's in the do filter chain. It's in this method that we place all our logic that needs to be executed once per request. So as the request comes, this method just executes one time per request. It just executes one time. So going forward, so what happens is that as the client communicates with the server, it communicates with request. That is, example is moving from one page to another. clicking on buttons, viewing images. So as all this happens, different requests are sent to the server, and then it goes through this JWT authentication to make sure that the user is actually authenticated to and authorized to actually perform those functions. So if the user is not authenticated, it takes the user and sets that user into the security context holder. So we will know what I mean by security context holder as we go forward. So these are the components that that is in the HTTP request header. There's the host, user agent, accept, and these other ones. And then you can see the authorization header too. It's also part of the HTTP request header. So what we do is that we first look for this authorization in the request header, and then we store it in the authentication header. Yeah, we store it in the authentication header. So there in the code below. So this is how we store it here. String. This is how we store it here. Request.get header of authorization. We store it into this authorization header. So this is supposed to be authorization header. So this is the sample as I showed you before. The authorization header, it contains the bearer and the token. So you can see that the token is actually you can get the token, you can extract the token by using this .substring of 7. So what it means is that you extract the token is for what it means is that to extract the token from the authorization header, we use the substring, the string method. So substring is a string method that starts after the 7th character. So the 7th character here is bearer. If you look into this now, you see that there are 7 characters here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the space is also 1 character. So that makes it 7. So the token is after these 7 characters here. So that's where you get the token. So moving forward, the security context holder is actually in the context of JWT authentication. After successfully authenticating a user, we set the authentication object in the security context. So to authenticate a user, it has to be set into the security context holder. So later when we need to access that information from the authenticated user, we can retrieve the authentication object from that security context holder by using this this method here, security context holder.get context .get that authentication. So the actual details stored in the authentication object often includes the username, the authorities or roles of that user, and details about associated with the authentication. So the next one you're going to also have to know about is the username password authentication token. So this is a class that is commonly used for authentication purposes involving the username and password of that user. So to set it, you have to do it is you have to implement this. So you create a new instance of username password authentication token, and then you set the username, the password, and then the authority that you have assigned for that user. So you will see here that this is null. So the first parameter, that is this one here, the username, is the username of the user extracted from the token, the JWT token. Then the second parameter, the password, is set to null. It's set to null because we're actually authenticating the user based on a token, not a password. So you have to set it to null. And then the third parameter, authority, is the roles that you set for or you assign to that user. So finally, we close the code by using filter chain.doFilter request response. So this continues the chain and allows the next filter or the next request to be processed. So coming down, we're going to be seeing the steps in creating the JWT authentication filter. So as I've said before, the purpose of this code is to handle user authentication based on the JWT token by checking and validating that token. So this is what we're going to, these are the different steps. So these steps are as clear as possible. So as you follow them step by step, you will actually be able to implement the whole JWT authentication filter class. So going forward, I'll be going back and forth with these steps so you understand the code, understand how to create the code. So going into IntelliJ. First thing first, in the last video, I didn't point out that we have to get these dependencies, JWT dependencies. So we need the implementation, JWT implementation, JWT API, and JWT Jackson. So you can get these three dependencies from Maven repository site. Okay, so going back to the video, we have to create the class. So public class, this is the class name, and then we're going to extend the once per request. Okay, so now it's telling us that we need to implement a method. So that is the JWTFilter internal method. So that's it, yeah. So before we start, there are two dependencies we have to inject into this class. So they are the JWT util. So if you didn't watch the last video, you won't. We have already created the JWT utils in the last video. So you have to watch that first, and then we have the second one, the user service implementation. You also need that. So then the next thing is generating the constructor. For the two, we auto-wire it. So that is the constructor injection auto-wired. So now we can use can use the instance of these classes inside this our JWT authentication filter. So it's giving us an error here. What it means is that Spring Boot is not seeing this class as a Spring component. So what we need is that we have to annotate a class with components. So then that's how it goes. So coming into the JWTFilter chain, so this is where all our old logic will be. So the first thing first to do is that we need to initialize and declare some variables as null. So we'll be setting the token as null. We'll set the authorization header as null too. Then also the username, we'll set it as null. And then we'll also set the user details as null. User detail equals to null. So we import the user details into this class. So these user details here from the Spring framework. Enter. So next thing now is to follow these steps up here. So the first step is to check the authorization header is not empty and that it starts with bearer. That is bearer with a space. Then when we check it, then if it's true, we set the token and the username extracted from that token. So what we're going to do here is that set the authorization header equal to request. So from the request header, Remember I told you that the request header, the HTTP request header, has one of the components as an authorization. So that's what we do using the request.get header. So we're looking at the authorization part of the, so this is it here. So we set that value, the value that we got from the authorization, into this authorization header. Then we are now going to check if the authorization header is not null and is not null. Okay, we're going to check if it's not null, if it's not empty, and if it also starts with a bearer. So that's it here. Dot authorization header dot starts with bearer and space. So if it does, we're going to set the token as the substring of authorization header, and then we're going to set the username as gotten from the token. So if you had watched the previous video from when we created the JWT utils, you'll see that we created the extract username method. So that's what we're going to use here. So calling on the utils.extract username. So we're going to extract the username from this token. So at this point here, we're through with the first step here. With this first step. Then the second step now is to check if the username extracted from the token is set in the security context. And if it's not set in security context, that we need to set the user detail from the database. So we have to load the user from the database and then use that user in the user details. So that's what we're going to do next. So if the username here is not null and security context holder dot get context dot get authentication is empty. So that is null. So if the user name is not null and the security context holder is empty, so that means the user has not been authenticated. So we have to load that user from database and store it into the user detail. So that's going to be user service dot load user by username and user. So to get this load user by username, you have to set the user implementation here. So it's going to be find by username, find by username, find by username. So this is a okay, find by username, then the username here, and then we're going to create then we're going to create the username, the method into the user repository interface here. So you see it here. Then going back here. So this is it here. Then going back to the JWT authentication class here. Now we have gotten the user. That is this user here. That's the user gotten from the token. We have gotten the user back from the database. And we have stored the user into the user details variable here. So the next thing to do now is to, inside this if statement here, we're going to check for another condition here. So if the user detail is not null and is token, so we're going to be using from the util class, from JWT util class dot is token valid. So I'll explain what this is. So get username. So what it means here is that this is the third step here. So we're checking the validity of the token against the username extracted from the user details. So we're checking that the username that is in that token and that the token is not yet has not become expired or is not valid yet. So we are checking that the token is still valid for that user. That's what I mean here. So we're checking that the token is still valid for this user. Yeah, and this user is from the token here. So if it's true, if the token is still valid, then we are going to create this is a short form for username password authentication token loaded with that user details, password as the null and the authority of that user. So we're going to set it as username password authentication token equal to, so creating a new instance, new username password authentication token, then the user detail. So user detail is what we loaded from the database here. Then we're going to set null as the password. So because of this is a JWT, we're authenticating with a JWT token. So we're not going to be using any value for the null, for the password. We're going to set it as null. And then we're going to set the user detail dot get authorities. So we're going to also set the row that we have given this user already. So that's the third step here. The fourth step is to set more information such as the remote address and the section ID to this username password authentication token. So we do this using this web authentication detail source. So I will show you how we will do that. So this is what we'll do. We say username password authentication token dot set details, and then we're going to create a new instance of the web authentication details source, and then we're going to build details and include the request right here. So this is how we're going to set the username password authentication token with more information about that user. So the remote address and the section ID. Okay. Then the fourth step we're going to do here is the fifth step is to finally set the UPA token, that's the username password authentication token, with the user details and other information to the security context. So what it means is that we're going to now take this user that we are authenticated. So at this point now we've authenticated user, and then we want to set that user into the security context holder. So we do this by using security context holder dot get context dot set authentication, and then we put in the username password authentication token here. So at this point, we have now taken the authenticated user, and then we have stored that user into the security context holder. So this is very important in Spring Boot. We have to make sure that the user that is sending the request has to be authenticated. So if the user is not authenticated, then we have to now authenticate that user. So that's what we did at this point here. So at this point, we are through with this condition here. So the next step now to do is now to using the filter string two requests, filter response, we'll have to continue to the next request. So we'll just put in this filter chain.do filter requests response. So at this point, we are through with this class. So next thing we're going to do is to now annotate the non-null and the at lazy. So we're going to put the at lazy here because we don't want it to initialize immediately the application starts up. So we want it to is on a request. So that's why we put the at lazy here. And then for this this request here, we need to put the non-null here. For this one, the non-null, and then for this one, the non-null also. So guys, so that's it. That's it. At this point, we are through with the steps here. So at this point, the class has completed the purpose at which it was created, and that purpose is to handle the user authentication based on the token by checking and then validating that token. And if the user has not been set into the security context holder, at the end it takes that user, that authenticated user, and then sets it into the security context holder. So that's it, guys. Yeah, that's the end of this video. So in the next video, we'll be looking at the web security config. So we'll be seeing how to create this class. Also, if you have questions on this class, you can chat me up, you can send in a comment, so and I'll reply you as soon as possible. So please, guys, subscribe to my channel, like, share, and comment. Also follow for more content too. Thank you, guys.